Thank God it's Friday. Welcome to PM Personality Profile. And of course, your usual host, I'm here with you, Nana Hima Aisha Ibrahim. My guest tonight, a lawyer with 61 years experience. He was the chairman of the committee of experts that formulated the proposal for the 1992 Constitution. He is an active international arbitrator and a former member of the ICC Court of International Arbitration in Paris. He co-founded the Ghana Arbitration Center. He is a former president of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences and a board member of the National Peace Council. Nana Susubribi Krobea Asante, Paramount Chief of Asante Asokore, known in private life as Samuel Kojo Asante, affectionately called Dr. S.K.B Asante. Nana, I come in peace. Good to see you.
Thank you. Same here.
How have you been?
Fine. Thank you very much.
I mean, during the 2020 elections, I saw more of you trying to preach peace to the people of Ghana and ensure that, I mean, the two major political parties ended in peace. And, I mean, the general 2020 elections also ended in peace. What have you been up to 4 months after the elections?
Well, after the elections, you know, I'm a Paramount Chief, so I'm very much involved in the affairs of my traditional area, Asokore traditional area. I am also the chairman of the Ghana Arbitration Center, so I superintend the activities of the center. I'm involved in one arbitration myself, one international arbitration. Since the meeting of the National Peace Council during the early days of the elections, we have been very busy planning activities for the remaining year, the rest of the year. These activities are sometimes supported by some foreign donors. We have one planned activity which has to do with hate speech, you know, the restraint on hate speech. Our regional councils are very active in regional, in the attempts to resolve regional conflicts, you know. For example, there's one case going on in Upper East where the Regional Peace Council is very much involved. We have a number of other activities which we are going to launch this month, but it's a long-standing affair. It's a long-standing engagement. Even on the political front, we are thinking of ways in which we can prevent political conflict. And so far as the National Peace Council is concerned, we are very much engaged. I also occasionally attend the activities of the Ghana Arbitration Center. So these are some of the things which have engaged me for the past few months. Thank you.
It must be a tough job to be with the National Peace Council, especially I remember leading up to the 2020 elections when you were pleading to people to coexist, and they were actually not interested. A number of them were not interested. How do you feel about the sometimes people feeling that the National Peace Council has not lived up to expectation?
Well, that's a real misreading of the mandate of the National Peace Council, who was set up to explore mechanisms for the prevention, resolution, and management of conflict both at the national level and at the regional level, even sometimes interreligious level. And the nature of our mandate is such that we can only play a mediatory role. And every student of ADR knows that you can't have mediation if the two parties don't agree. to submit to your mediation. You recall that when it came to political vigilantism, after some efforts, both major parties agreed to have a dialogue moderated by the National Peace Council and assisted by various civil service organizations on the prevention, on the eradication of political vigilantism. That went on for months before they came to an agreement and subscribed to a public document, a code of conduct on political vigilantism. So we cannot intervene without the consent of both parties towards resolving a case. And it is not our function from time to time just get up and condemn what one particular party or one particular personality is doing. That is not within our mandate. Our mandate, if you look at it, is to look at all the ways, the mechanisms for this prevention, strengthen the capabilities of people who are involved in conflict resolution, coordinate with other bodies which are involved in conflict resolution. The two parties got together and very carefully prescribed the area of our activity. We are not a court of law, we are not a police force, so we have to take cognizance of what the official agencies are doing and operate within the boundaries of our mandate. And so some people, when people say we haven't done this or we haven't done that, it is my humble submission that they are not aware of the mandate of the National Peace Council. I will advise them to read the mandate and say, what are you not doing? And also, some of our activities are a little constrained by the fact that the resources for our major activities usually come from donors. We have budgetary support for the payment of our staff and so forth. But we, the commissioners, the eminent members, so-called, who are constitute the council, we are like volunteers with various sort of minimal allowances. And yet our ability to actually engage in major areas of conflict resolution, our ability is somewhat constrained by the lack of funds. And so that's something that we have to look into, yes. And we're trying to do our best. Now, every election year since 2012, we have been able to persuade the presidential candidates to subscribe to this peace pact. Yep. It's no mean achievement. And that is what has contributed to the comparative peace that we have had in election. Of course, it's not entirely peaceful, but we know the efforts that we made.
I tried reading your CV, and at a point I thought I was reading a booklet.
Yes.
We really admire you, and then as the Asante say, wabobra.
Thank you very much.
Right. People know the things you do, but do not really know who you are. Let's start from your childhood. I know it all started from Asokore, yes. Methodist School.
Yes.
Great. Were you born in Asokore?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. How was childhood like growing up like?
Well, growing up, I lived with my parents, mainly my grandmother and my mother and our external family. My father was separated from my mother when I was a little child. Later on, I got to know him later on. But the central thing in my childhood was the Asokore Methodist School. And the Asokore Methodist School was very important in my life. First of all, I have to give credit to the Omanhene at that time, Nanaya Jumada first. He was unlettered, but he was far-sighted enough to contribute £3,000 sterling to the establishment of the Asokore Methodist School, which at that time was the only senior elementary school establishment in the area. So people from Jabin, Epidasi, Oyoko, Banko, Setre, Sineja, all these people used to come to Asokore Methodist School because we had the senior school from Stand 4 to Stand 7.
Okay.
The most famous, I would say, of my classmates was the late Professor Edubuahin.
Okay.
Oh yes, he lived in Jabin, some 3.5 miles away, and he used to walk every day, 7 miles in and out.
To school?
To school.
Wow.
From 43 to 47 to 46. I left Asokore Methodist School in 1946 to attend Achimota when I was in Stand 6. And I mentioned this because of the influence of a certain headmaster known as Mr. S.K.B. In those days, there was no common entrance examination. And there were very few secondary schools, mostly in Cape Coast, a few in Accra, and so forth. There were no more than 12 secondary schools. And in order to go to a secondary school, you had to sit for the entrance examination to that school. There was no common entrance examination.
Okay.
So if you're in Asokore, you had to have the courage to say, well, I want to go to Achimota or in Pansapim, and I want to take the entrance examination.
And you made it
It
there?
never occurred to me to take the entrance examination to Achimota, but there was a headmaster who advised me when I was in standard 5 in the year 1944, that Asante, if you present yourself for this examination, you may pass and even get a scholarship. I said, all right, sir. And then one of my seniors said, oh, you Achimota, they don't accept village boys of your type. So actually, I didn't take that exam.
Oh.
And then headmaster asked me, what were the results of that examination? I said, well, I gather the likes of us are not welcome. He said, what nonsense? Take it. So I took it in 1945. And that's why I landed in Achimota.
Wow.
And once you go to Achimota, you know the gate is open.
It's open.
So a transition from my village school to Achimota was an epoch in my personal history. And Achimota, I got all the facilities I needed, and then things followed thereafter.
It must have been fun in Achimota.
Oh, absolutely. It was incredible. I mean, it was a new world altogether. We had everything, you know, excellent science laboratories, a swimming pool, a music hall, excellent teachers. They were mostly European, English, or expatriate. But we had some excellent Ghanaian teachers at that time who had been to the UK and come back with excellent degrees and were teaching us. They were our role models because they taught us that we too could go in there. And we were encouraged to do everything. I mean, not only actually studying, but also extracurricular activities. Those who were interested in sports were able to do sports. Those of us who were interested in things like debating and discussion were interested. I have here a picture of something called the Plato Club. I was the vice president, or the most senior student office.
Okay.
Sitting by me was Mr. Spiogabra, the father of the Honorable Spiogabra.
Okay.
And in the picture here we have what a lady called Louise Ellis Henkel, who became Mrs. Edwin Samform.
Okay.
They're all here, you know. And Plato Club was like an intellectual group which invited people to give lectures, like Dr. J.B. Dankwa on philosophy and culture. And, you know, we benefited from this. So the foundation they gave us at Achimota was just excellent. So we went abroad to attend universities. We were totally at home. Yes. And not only that, Achimota stood for other things, not just, you know, intellectual development and so forth, but it also instilled a certain feeling of public service.
Okay.
We have this story of carrying living water to a thirsty land, and the idea of combining the best of African culture with the best of Western culture. They were all in Achimota.
Wow.
Thank you, so we enjoyed it very much.
Was that your first time of seeing a swimming pool?
was the first time of actually swimming in the swimming pool, but I thought I had seen one somewhere. But actually, there's one thing which, now that you ask me, I was brought up in a rural area, but my mother did not stay much in Asokore. She was a trader.
Okay.
And so, while I lived with my grandmother attending school during the holidays, I used to visit my mother either at Obuasi or Tapa or Christia or Kumasi or even Accra.
Okay.
So by the time I came to Ajimota, I was pretty
exposed.
exposed. A teacher of ours met me at Accra, and when he was teaching us, whenever he mentioned the site in Accra, I said, Asante, do you remember that? Then I said, well, I remember or not. Yes, of course I remember.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. So back then in Asokore, what would you say were some of the challenges you faced?
There were no facilities for doing homework. You know, I mean, where are you going to do the homework? With the only light in the house, and people will say, oh, you little boy, you can't monopolize the light. And, but notwithstanding this, we had very dedicated teachers. Some of these teachers even studied privately and eventually go to universities abroad. You know, somebody called Timothy Anson. He actually went eventually to King's College, Cambridge, and was a member of the famous King's College choir. Another one called Kweku Amponso Ifa also went to Cambridge. Another one called Buafo, J.K. Buafo, the father of the minister, you know, Samson Buafo. He became an accountant and a banker. And then there was Ebenezer Adam from the north, who was my favorite teacher. He became a minister in Nkrumah's cabinet. So these people were, they studied privately, so they were role models for us. So the constraints that I mentioned did not deter us from pursuing, you know, our aims, our goals.
What did you study in Ajimota School?
I did arts eventually.
Okay, so you did both O-level, sixth form in Ajimota?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And three of us were supposed to have done well enough to be announced on a national radio called ZOY in those days. Okay. Yes, because we got a number of distinctions which they thought was, you know, I was lucky to be among the three.
Great.
And from there, I went to Nottingham University.
Nottingham University. So LLB from Nottingham University.
Yes.
LLM from London.
Yes.
Doctor of Juridical Science from Yale University.
Yes.
That's a bag of experience. Tell me about it.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, my going to law was improbable.
Okay.
Because when people were going to school, the only people who were lawyers were people with affluent families who could send them for legal training in England. There was no law school
in Ghana.
There was no law department at the University of Ghana. And the government the colonial government gave a number of scholarships for history, for science, for medicine, but not for law, because they thought lawyers were troublesome. They drew on the experience in India, and so Indian lawyers gave them a lot of problems. Okay. But then, just as we were graduating from the sixth form, this policy changed because Ghana was going to be independent. Imminent independence told them that they needed lawyers in various government departments, like the Attorney General's Department, Lands Department, Registrar General's Department, and so forth. So they gave scholarships for those who wanted to train and become government lawyers. Okay. And so it was advertised. By the time this advertisement appeared in 1953, I was almost about to enter the University of Ghana to read honors history with my friend and classmate Dubois. And then we applied. So let's just try. The scholarship board was chaired by the late, very eminent Edward Akufo-Addo, father of the president.
The president.
And a very, very high-powered board, and we were lucky to be elected, to be selected. Okay. And so we went abroad. I went to the University of Nottingham. And University of Nottingham was a very interesting experience. It was a small department.
Okay.
The entire student body never exceeded 100 in my time. But the faculty, the teachers were excellent.
Wow.
Lawyers will know people like Professor Harry Street, who was an authority on the law of torts, or Professor J.C. Smith, authority on the criminal law and contracts, or J.A.C. Thomas, authority on Roman law. These all became internationally famous. And we saw that they were very good even when we were there, but when we left, they became internationally famous. And the quality of Nottingham University is also demonstrated by the graduates of Nottingham University, what they did.
Okay.
One is Philip Archer, Chief Justice. Another is Peter Adajete, Speaker, Kobna Aban, Isaac Kobna Aban, and the Chief Justice.
Household names.
And a very prominent lawyer called J.K. Ajiman, who are all graduates, Mr. Dominic Mills, Registrar General, was also there. These are some of the few that I can mention. You can just see that the products were very good, and I enjoyed that very much. Then from there, I went to London. And I must say that when I was at Nottingham University, I was also involved in debating and so forth, just like Ashimota. Okay. I was the secretary of the University Debating Society. Okay. And I was a member of the committee of my hall, Stewart, my college. We went to London. London was like a vast metropolis. Various colleges dotted around the city. So you had one lecture in another place, King's College, then another in LSE, and another at the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies. We were also articled to law firms. Okay. That's according to our scholarship for 3 years. So we were doing this together with the LLM. The LLM was something which was not in the plan. Okay. I did it on my own.
It makes you on the way.
And it was likely to pass. And so that's how we did. But one thing I would like to say is that my secondary and tertiary education coincided with the nationalist movement in Ghana. Okay. I went to Achimota in the year 1946. 1947 was foundation of UGCC and the arrival of Nkrumah. 1948 were the riots. Christian Law Castle, the death of the soldiers. It was followed by the Watson Commission, which proposed a constitution which would be sensitive to the nationalist aspirations of the country. Then this led to the Kusi Constitution. I was in, I think, fifth form. And the Kusi Constitution was promulgated in 1951, which brought Nkrumah into government, at first as the leader of government business, eventually as Prime Minister, and eventually I got my degree in England in the year 1956, just before independence, 1957. When independence came, it was celebrated in London by all Africans. Wow. At that time, all Africans were Ghanaians.
Did you really want to become a lawyer, or it was by chance?
Well, there was one incident at elementary school. An inspector called Diana came there. We were in Form Standard 4, 1943, I recall. I was 10 years old. He observed me and asked me, "Little boy, what would you like to become?" And then, trying to be very impressive, I said I wanted to be a lawyer. And my classmates just laughed it off with, a dismissive laughter. Because in those days, a lawyer was a very rare phenomenon in Ashanti. There were no more than two, like S.K.B and Henry Prempe. And I told you about the constraints of being a lawyer. You had to come from an affluent family. And so when I was going to through secondary school, it was not in my mind at all. I was going to do history. So that this advertisement which I saw and the scholarship board, which was headed by the late eminent Kufuor, was something which developed my way. And actually, at one time I wasn't sure, even having got the two scholarships, wasn't sure whether I wanted to do history
or you wanted to,
law.
Okay, you're caught up between choosing.
I opted for law almost reluctantly, and the Lord showed his way.
And finally, at secondary school in Achimota, before you even had that scholarship, what would you say were some of the challenges you faced as a student in Achimota?
Well, I was very, very small. Senior girls used to berate my mother for being wicked enough to send such a little boy. I was one of the smallest
in school.
So everybody said, "Oh, this little boy." I was mature enough. But it wasn't a challenge. It was just,
bullying.
Treated like a little doll. Sometimes the girls even took me to their dormitory. So I wasn't robust physically, but intellectually I did what I could, and there were no real impediments. I couldn't say there were any challenges at Achimota. I mean, there were challenges, and Achimota are incompatible.
Wow. Let's talk about your career as a lawyer.
Yes.
Your days as an attorney with the World Bank.
Yes.
Your days as Chief Legal Advisor and Director at the UN Center on Transitional Cooperation at New York. Your days of lecturing at the Law Faculty of Cambridge, Leeds, UK, Temple in Philadelphia, Howard in Washington, and our own University of Ghana. I mean, how different compared to home?
Well, first of all, university life is comparable, There are things that are done here, which are also done there. There are variations of intensity and so on and so on. So as far as the academic life is concerned, I would say that we are not entirely on different territory when you go there. I would say that if you go to an American law school, there are no lectures. They don't lecture.
Okay.
They give materials, cases and law statutes for you to study. And then when you go to the classroom, there's something called a Socratic dialogue between the professor and the students.
Okay.
Ask questions, and you really try out to sort of
answer them.
Interact intellectually. So that's another way of thinking. But the one thing that I would like to emphasize, so far as practice is concerned, is that the kind of practice I did when I went to the World Bank was international business transactions. Doing negotiations between the bank and various countries on loan agreements for projects like education, power contracts, road, and so forth and so on. It is known in law as non-contentious business. It is where, the lawyer is dealing with documents and projects and so forth, drafting, negotiating and so forth. I did more of that when I became Solicitor General in this country, and I did even more of that when I was Chief Legal Advisor and finally Director of the United Nations Center on Transnational. Now, it is my firm belief that this concentration on transactions, this specialization on transactions, like negotiating a petroleum agreement, negotiating an international construction contract, negotiating a power contract, and learning how to execute these transactions. This is something which is rare in Ghana and in most African countries. It is my national campaign or international campaign that we must concentrate on this. Law is not only advocacy in court. Most people think of law as wearing a wig and gown, standing before a court, litigating. Litigating is very, very important. And in this country, there are many, many distinguished litigators, advocates. But there are very few who have specialized in transactions. That's why sometimes we get into trouble with some of our agreements. These international agreements are very, very complex.
Yep.
They are very complex. How to design.
You need to have the expertise
yes, you need
to
have
be
expertise. And I do not believe that any minister or any chief director or any civil servant can just be shifted from one ministry to another and be made an expert in this area. I think there has to be a concern. This is what we tried to do when I was Solicitor and Deputy Attorney General.
Okay.
It is an expertise which I tried to develop. And it was my expertise in this area which led to my appointment to the United Nations Center on Transnational Corporations, which was an institution which gave advice to developing countries in their negotiations or dealings with multinational or transnational corporations.
And it's not late now. We can begin to consider it.
We can begin. I have been preaching it, except that my sermons don't penetrate. That is something that we can begin to do if you realize that it's important.
Yeah. Let's talk about Ghana's justice system
Justice.
and the distribution of lawyers, representation of clients across the country. Are you satisfied with the representation or with our situation as it is now?
You see, sometimes people say there are too many lawyers. I don't subscribe to that view. What we need is quality lawyers. Because if you look at the distribution of lawyers, we find them in the cities, Kumasi, Accra, and so forth. Now the town that I mentioned, Trabe, Evidasi, Asokore, Ad Kumawu, Joso, these are all sizable towns in a sense. There's not one lawyer, stationed in any of these places. If you want anything, you have to go to Kumasi. And yet there are many transactions you need legal advice. Wills, land transactions. We are dealing with land transactions in our traditional courts. The documentary evidence of transfers and so forth. The effect of PNDC law 111, when a person dies intestate, there's always a problem as to whether traditional law
administration letters and all
whether
that.
Traditional law is, rules or whether PNDC 111. I'm getting all sorts of things. All this could easily be solved. We had people called country solicitors, solicitor with them outfit, and they will get business. All the who are pouring to Kumasi and so forth will go there. There are circuit courts and there are high courts in some of these places. So I think the distribution is a problem. And I think to the extent that there are many law schools trying to train lawyers, my advice to them that they should be quality. Right? The people, the senior lawyers, are horrified by some of the standards they have seen. I don't believe in the production of lawyers without quality. Quality is always important. And I have been an examiner in their bar examination. And I can see that sometimes they need to back up.
Nana Susubribi Krobea Asante, Paramount Chief of Asante Asokore, my guest tonight. When I return from this break, remember he's an active international arbitrator. In fact, he used to work, or he was a former member of the ICC Court of International Arbitration in Paris. What does he do as an arbitrator? Also, he was the chairman of the committee of experts that formulated the proposal for the 1992 Constitution. When I return, I'll be gauging his mood on whether or not the Constitution 1992 has outlived its purpose. Should it be changed, or should some parts of the Constitution be amended? Stay with me, all of that after this break. Back to PM Personality Profile. My guest tonight, Dr. Samuel Kojo Boateng Asante. He's also known as Nana Susubribi Krobea, Paramount Chief of Asante Asokore, and we're having some very interesting insight into his growing up. Before I even go into your passion for arbitration, let's talk about your academic life. And how many publications do you have to your credit?
I haven't really counted them because I write, I keep writing. In 1965, when I joined the World Bank, and when I had an offer from the World Bank, I was a lecturer at the University of Leeds in England. Perhaps I could start by saying that I taught at the University of Ghana from 1961. I was on the faculty staff till 65. But during the course of this, I spent 2 years at Yale Law School doing a doctorate. And from there, I went and taught at the University of Leeds. And then I had to decide whether I would continue at Leeds or accept an offer from the World Bank. I accepted the offer from the World Bank because I wanted to be involved in international business transactions and to be involved in practice. But I told myself that I would never stop the scholarly effort. So since then, I've been publishing wherever I've been, whether I'm Solicitor General or with the UN, I've been publishing. And so it's something that goes on. Even within the past few years, I've published 2 books, and I have one article in a major publication of the University of Ghana Law Journal and so forth. So what are the areas in which I publish? I started by publishing in land law.
Wow.
I published an article on Ghana land law, which was actually accepted for publication in the Yale Law Journal, which was quite unusual in 1965.
Wow.
But this was foreign law, and the fact that I was able to get into a very prestigious law journal. And I published on trust, the law of trust also. And then when I moved into the international arena, I started publishing on international business transactions. Publishing things on petroleum agreements, long-term contracts. I've also published in the area of human rights law. So they have been varied, and it is because of my publications, mainly, that 47 jurists and scholars and international legal experts honored me by publishing this book, which is known as the First Shift. The First Shift is a collection of essays in honor of a scholar who has reached a certain level.
Wow.
So it says it all. And all of them were inspired by what I said. And so some of them start by paying tribute to me and how they met me and what and so on. Others just published the article just to say that I'm doing this in honor of this man. But there are 47. And they are here.
So I get opportunities to read.
Yeah, that's right. So that is my scholarly work. Now, I was also at one time a candidate for the International Court of Justice. There are reasons why the campaign failed, but that is not for want of recognition by well-known international lawyers of my standing as an international lawyer. I got endorsements from people who were themselves members of the International Court of Justice. And that is part of the materials that I'm collecting in publishing something called biographical essays, which would deal with all these things. So I have published in international law, particularly in the area of international investment law. And my concern has not only to be to strengthen the capability of developing countries in their negotiations, but also my concern is that there should be a reform of the basic concepts of public international law to accommodate the needs of developing countries. So I'm known in many circles as the sort of the champion of developing countries. And many people in European and American universities have said that when they have read Western authorities on international law and they come up on my publications, it is like a refreshing sort of perspective. And we've got a lot of interest. I got invited by many universities as a result of that. That is why I was invited as a visiting professor of international law, of international investment law at Temple University Law School. That's why I got invited as an adjunct professor of law at Howard University Law School. I taught international business transactions. And that is why I was invited by Cambridge University. I was elected as a visiting fellow of Clare Hall and as a visiting member of the law faculty of Cambridge University. And I delivered a lecture to the Cambridge University International Club, International Law Club, on the topic multinationals and international law, which was something which was quite interesting because it gave a new perspective of this area. And so this is where I have been publishing. I've also been very interested in things of social reform, you know. Some of my publications since coming back have dealt with the role of law in society, the role of law in social change. And so all these contributors found something, you know, also on land law. I contributed to the land law by my publications, not only in Yale Law School, but I published a book called Property Law and Social Goals in 1975. And these publications of mine in land law were standard reference materials at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology Department of Land Economy. They still refer to it. And I was made chairman of the committee of experts that drafted the recent land bill, which has become land law, Ghana land law. The project, the land administration project funded by the World Bank had been going on for 13 years. When I was made chairman, I was able to finalize the whole thing within 1 year. And the Ghana land law that you find now was done under my chairmanship. There was a committee which dealt with it, but I was the chairman of the whole body. So that is my area. I have never given up, and that's why when I came back, I was elected vice president of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. First of all, I was elected a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences in 1976 on the basis of my publications. At that time, I was a deputy attorney general, but I was on leave at Temple University as a visiting professor. And I was invited by many law schools in America, Michigan, Berkeley, UCLA, Yale, Villanova, and so forth and so on. So I have combined my scholarly work with my practical legal work, which I think is very, so I really don't mind if people don't call me professor, because I haven't made the university the center of this thing. But I have been recognized as a professor by the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, and that's enough.
We're so proud of you, and we celebrate you for the milestone you've chalked. But you're also an arbitrator, and you are so passionate about this. What do you do as an arbitrator?
Well, you see, first of all, arbitration is well known to us. I mean, we do it, customary arbitration, when you agree that number of people, you submit to a number of people. In our traditional setup, of course, you submit to the chief and his elders to settle the case for you, and the case is binding, the judgment is binding. So then you move into the national level. We have an ADR Act of Ghana, under which you can, two parties who are involved in a dispute can submit their dispute to arbitration by a panel of 3 arbitrators or arbitrator. It is supposed to address the whole issue of long and expensive litigation. If you do arbitration, it may not be less expensive, but at least it will be quicker. You know, the thing will be settled by people who are experts. Now, at the international level, it's very, very important because many people are trading or doing business across national frontiers. An investor comes to Ghana and invests in petroleum. There's a dispute. He's not confident that the Ghanaian courts will do justice to him. The practice is that they want international arbitration. And so there are many centers of international arbitration, like the ICSID, the International Center for the Settlement of Investment Disputes, which was founded by the World Bank. Then the ICC, Chamber of International Court of Arbitration, where I served as a member. Then there is arbitration under the auspices of this facility, WIPO, in Geneva. There are regional arbitration centers in Lagos and Egypt, and so forth and so on. Now, so at the international level, if you do not know the subject matter of the arbitration, and you also do not know the rules, the arbitration rules of the particular organization which is organizing the arbitration, then you are handicapped. So in Ghana, and that's another way, specialization that we must do. And that's why we set up this center, that we do not only international arbitration, but we give workshops on international arbitration so that people will know. Because if you are going into international arbitration and you don't know your way about it, you either hire an expensive international law firm from the UK or America, or make a mess of it. And sometimes when we get awards against us, we don't understand, but these are some of the things. People have to specialize, not only international business transactions, but also in ways of settling international disputes. So that's what we do, and that's what I'm a chairman of. And people decide who the arbitrators are. We provide facilities, and we have rules. If you want to use our rules, fine. So that we are encouraging this business not only at the national level, but at the international level. Because that's what obtains, as far as international economic transactions are concerned. Somebody from India comes here and there's a dispute, it goes to international arbitration from America.
For some time now, Ghana's constitution, which you played a key role in giving birth to, has generated some discourse among Ghanaians who think there are those who feel that the Constitution 1992, I must say the longest serving Constitution of Ghana, has outlived its purpose. There are others who believe that no, they're just portions that are outmoded that must be amended. What's your take on this one?
Well, first of all, I want us to distinguish between the Constitution and what I call political culture.
Okay.
There are many things going on in the public arena, in the political arena, which are not traceable to the Constitution.
Okay.
For example, contrary to popular beliefs, I do not think that the kind of party politics, partisan politics that we have, has anything to do with the Constitution. It's part of the culture, political culture. Now, the Constitution came into force in 1993. We were involved. I was the chairman of the committee of experts we made proposals. In our proposals, we made a number of suggestions which could have imposed some limitations on presidential powers.
Okay.
When it went to the Assembly, Constituent Assembly, these checks and balances were removed.
Wow.
Oh yes. There was a prevailing feeling that they wanted a strong executive. A person like Professor Ninsing, the political scientist, who was a member of the Consultative Assembly, has actually written. And this feeling came not only from the supporters of PNDC, but also from others. For example, Professor Folsom, a very, very distinguished professor of political science, was certainly not aligned with the PNDC. He was arguing for a strong executive presidency as part of the statecraft, which was needed to address the present problem of the country. So the concentration of powers in the executive was something which actually came from the general discussion, not only within the Assembly, but outside. There was nobody who supported the idea of having an executive president and a prime minister with division of labor. There was nobody who supported our idea of proportional representation. Nobody supported our idea of having a very effective Council of State, which would act as some sort of second emperor. No, there was no support for the involvement of chiefs in local government. All these things were whittled down by prospective politicians, I would say. So that was the feeling there. Now, right now, I still maintain, and many people will say, that there's excessive presidential powers. It's true. But the interesting thing is that none of the political parties has made this a major concern or a major element of their manifestos. I'm yet to see any political party that said that when we come to power, we will reduce presidential powers. I haven't seen that.
Okay.
So
there's no political will.
Yes, it has political will. And it looks as if this is a prize that the two major political parties are fighting for. Once they get it, fine. Once they don't get it, of course, they may feel that they have been cheated and so forth and so on. So the question really is whether the two political powers are prepared to agree to the diminution of presidential powers. That is a factor. Now, check our constitution. People say, oh, it needs amendment. Certainly, so far as presidential powers are concerned, I agree. But what else does the Constitution provide? It provides a very elaborate protection of human rights. It's more elaborate in this Constitution than any other Constitution. It has a very elaborate protection for the press, the media. Directive principles of state policy, very good, and so forth. Even parliamentary powers, which people say limited, have got many provisions which are not being fully exercised. For example, the parliamentary power to approve international business transactions. It's a potent power.
Yeah.
It's not being utilized properly. Somebody interpreted the Constitution to mean that a private member cannot introduce legislation. That is not true. It was a matter of interpretation by a certain speaker.
But so now I think with this new parliament,
yes,
it's working.
Exactly. I worked with the late, the former president, the former speaker, to bring this out. He mentions me actually.
The private members bill.
Can do that. But at first, people thought it wasn't so. And that was a misinterpretation of the Constitution. Nothing to do with the Constitution itself. And this idea of winner takes all, and so everybody thinks the Constitution. Well, really, the Constitution never says so. There's nowhere in the Constitution which says the president must compose an executive entirely, exclusively from his party. There's nowhere. And the president, if he desires, and if the two parties so desire, they could have inclusive government.
Okay.
So these are the things that are going on, which are being condemned, but it's not the result of the Constitution. In my humble view, it is the result of a kind of political culture that we have. We have gone haywire with our partisan politics and doing things that the Americans and the British do, which really are not appropriate to a developing country. I believe that the executive powers should be pruned down. I believe that. But apart from that, we must also look at the 4-year term, because it takes a long time for any government to settle down and really be effective. 4 years is not enough, particularly if we are changing all the boards of various corporations. And there are as many as 10 of these corporations in the energy sector alone, I can tell you. ECG and BRA and
Great Coal
and the Petroleum Commission, Petroleum Authority,
GMPC, all of them.
Change all of them. You institute in a new way. They don't learn much within the 4 years, and they have to be changed again. And even a president, 4 years is not. So Professor Kufuor, for example, said maybe we should think of a 7-year, one term. So some of these things. So let's look at the way in which our political culture is thwarting our development. I've always advocated that we need long-term development. I've brought my experiences in Korea, where they did education, primary education in 1960s, secondary in 70s, and tertiary in 1980s, and they were able to get the kind of educated workforce that they needed for the economic takeoff. I was sent to Korea in 1968 with a number of people from the IFC and the World Bank and 9 private banks to go and establish the Korea Development Finance Corporation. That Development Finance Corporation became the vehicle through which, Western capital came to Korea and developed. But in the course of this, they made sure that they had an education policy which would provide them with the expertise they needed. Long term. You can't have a long-term policy if you're changing things every 4 years.
Okay. So for you, the 4-year term.
Yes. So these are the things, maybe the 4-year term, but there's also the whole culture of partisan politics. The idea that, after election, the whole, nearly 50% of the population is out. That's for a developing country, in a plural society, where we come from various ethnic and religious groups. It's a major stumbling block. And it was a certain professor, Arthur Lewis, years ago in the 1950s, who thought of, and in fact wrote a book called The Politics of West Africa, in which he said that the kind of party politics practiced in the UK and the US would be a disaster for plural societies which are trying to get together from diverse ethnic and religious groups. Because if you follow that, it means the largest group must rule. And if the largest group happens to be the largest ethnic group, they must rule. But this is not work.
Yeah. Nana Susubribi Krobea Asante, Paramount Chief of Asante Asokore, my guest tonight. We're having a lot of fun here. Remember, he's a chief. When I return from this break, I'll be gauging his mood on chiefs' involvement in politics. Also, we'll be talking about land disputes and also find out how we should deal with some of these disputes and chieftaincy disputes as well. Again, how do we restore the seeming tattered moral fabric of our society? Plus, what does he do to keep fit? Does he love music? All of that after this break. Stay with me. To PM Personality Profile. Nana, I'm really enjoying this conversation. Let me start with your role as a chief. And of course, a lot of people take cue from people like you. I'm sure the people in Asokore, Asante Asokore look so much up to you. What do you make of recently the story about two teenagers killing a 10-year-old boy for ritual purposes? It has generated a whole lot of conversation, with many suggesting that our fabric as a country, as a society, has been destroyed. How do we fix this?
Well, it is absolutely horrifying that a crime of that sort could have been committed by so young people. I mean, people of such tender age. But we have to look at the whole phenomenon of superstition. First of all, the craze for money is bad enough. But the idea that you can get money by invoking some spiritual powers which call for body parts, murder and body parts, that is horrifying. And we, some time ago, the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences organized a national forum on science, technology in development. One of the objects of the forum was to instill science into the mindset of Ghanaians. This superstition is excessive. We get it in all forms. I'm having great difficulty in my area stopping the uttering of curses. Diabo. Somebody gets into a dispute with another person, and instead of referring it to appropriate authorities or an elderly person for resolution, mebodia, invoke the spirit of water, a river or something. And I went to school during the Second World War in the early 40s, end of 30s and the early 40s. And we were made to believe that, once we were educated and when, exposed to all these superstitions would die. But there seems to be intensification of these superstitions as we go along. I don't see progress there at all. Mm. So it's not just the moral fiber, but it is what feeds this. The moral fiber, of course, is going on, and if you jettison all our traditional values and so forth, we come to that. But some of our traditional values are fueled by these superstitions. And unless we, the idea of trying to get money by killing somebody because they need body parts, it is atrocious, it is barbaric, and it should be condemned.
Is the state failing us?
Sorry?
Is the state failing us as young people?
I don't know whether the state, whether the states can do so much. What are we doing to our own children? Where were these parents of these children when they were doing these? What kind of training have they given them? The religious bodies, how have they actually helped to drive away superstition? Some of these religious bodies are practice things which are themselves versions of superstition. If you do this, you can do this. If you do this, you can do this. The idea that by some unseen spiritual powers you can overcome the forces of nature is something that we in Africa have to get. Otherwise, we're always behind. No other country believes in this nonsense. And we would talk of development, you can't development physically with roads and electricity and so forth, and not be developed in a scientific approach to life.
To life.
Yes.
Recently, there's also been this debate about LGBTQI plus in Ghana, and people, many feel that it is against our culture, our tradition, our heritage. Where lies our culture, as they talk about our tradition, our heritage, in this whole situation?
Yeah, BJ thing, you know, I went to school, I went to university in England in 1953. At that time, in England, homosexuality was a crime. In England, homosexuality was a crime. Then it was decriminalized in England, but still homosexuality was frowned upon in society. Of course, there has been this idea of human rights, and there's a general feeling among progressive people that what people, consenting adults, do in the privacy of their bedroom should not be the concern of the law. However, it is a concern of religion and our culture. So, having lived in America and the UK and so forth, and having seen the developments that are going on, I'm quite prepared to say that if two people involve themselves in something which is morally wrong, the law should not be involved. If they involve themselves in adultery, for example, the law should not criminalize adultery. However, when it comes to two females or two males marrying, that's where I draw the line. Not only is it against our culture, but I don't see how it can be justified. Even as a matter of nature and the duty to procreate and so forth and so on. So I am very much aware of people who think this is a human right. But as a lawyer and so forth, I think there's also religious freedom. And if churches and courts believe that this is not permissible, you know, marrying between same genders, I can understand that. And I do not like us to think that any development in the UK, in Europe, or America is necessarily a standard for us to follow. I don't think so. I just told you about the excesses in party politics.
Yeah.
And if they want to go there that way, well, that's their problem. We should not follow
Blindly. Now, the resolution of the Dagbon crisis is a big landmark, and I mean, we're all happy that it happened, but that in essence hasn't really stopped chieftaincy disputes in our country. What for you is accounting for this phenomenon, and what do you prefer as solution?
Well, as a chief, I have to recognize that this is an issue. We chiefs see ourselves as agents of peace. We resolve many things. There are many things which are brought to their attention. As a matter of fact, when we talk of peacekeeping in the country, chiefs do more in the rural areas than the formal authorities. So peace is a matter which matters to us. And so if there's a proliferation of chieftaincy disputes which disturb the peace, it's a matter of concern to us. However, sometimes there are certain factors which inflame these disputes. One is political involvement. You know, I have during my lifetime seen chiefs deposed because they belonged to particular political parties in those days, and reinstated because they belonged to others. So the involvement of chiefs, of politics and chieftaincy, perpetuates chieftaincy disputes. Secondly, there have been formal structures which have been established for the resolution of chieftaincy disputes. These are known as judicial committees. We have judicial committees at the Traditional Council level, judicial committees at the level of regional houses of chiefs, and judicial committees at the level of national houses of chiefs, national house of chiefs. These judicial committees are the National House of Chiefs. This is a constitutional body, you know. It was set up by the Constitution and also by law. And they have to be funded. They have to be funded from state sources. I gather that the funding is all right now, but some time ago, there was difficulty in getting funding. Now you have to assemble 5 paramount chiefs to resolve a chieftaincy dispute at the National House of Chiefs. Now, if the resources are not forthcoming, you don't get it. Then there's one complication which has to be identified. The Courts Act has said that the High Court has no jurisdiction to settle chieftaincy disputes.
Yes.
But the High Court has a jurisdiction to exercise supervisory authority through prerogative writs over inferior adjudicating bodies, including judicial committees. However, if you look at the practice, you see that something which should proceed from the Traditional Council to the Regional House of Chiefs, the National House of Chiefs, to the National House of Chiefs has been complicated because there has been a reference to a High Court. The High Court then intervenes and tries to, settle it in a way which is not appropriate. And then there's an appeal.
Even though it doesn't have jurisdiction.
Yeah, they don't have jurisdiction. They do it by way of supervisory jurisdiction. And that can complicate. It can go through a High Court all the way to Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court, and then it still has to come through the judicial committee system. So these things have to be looked at. So that you see that certain chieftaincy disputes are protracted because of the involvement of the High Court. So these are factors. Then there's a question of settling lines of succession. In some areas, there is no principle of rotation. In others, there is. Now, these rules of succession have been given, the job of settling has been given to the National House of Chiefs, which is a major research function. And if you are not provided with the resources, you can't do it. So it's a very complex thing. And if we get the resources, we'll try and do what we can to reduce this chieftaincy.
What's your stance on chiefs involving themselves in politics?
Well, at a certain level, at the national level, to some extent, yes. In other words, chiefs should not be standing on platforms and campaigning with politicians and be subject to all the indignities or themselves utter words which denigrates chieftaincy. However, that doesn't mean that chiefs should not make their feelings clear on national policies. There's nothing in the Constitution which says that we shouldn't comment on legislation, that just because we are not members of Parliament, which really is not a particularly reasonable thing, because they think being a member of Parliament means that you are being part of somebody. In fact, there should be room for independent members of Parliament. But in any case, we should be able to comment on things which are going on in the country, which we think are detrimental to the country, just as I've been commenting on. Just because we're chief doesn't mean that, you know, you are a student, you are under some sort of disability.
Okay.
But at the local government level, I think chiefs must be involved. At the local government level, the position right now is that chiefs are excluded from local assemblies, except to the extent that they are appointed as members of the government appointees. That's not good enough. I think there should be a constitutional allocation of a certain percentage of seats in the assemblies to chiefs, because they have a stake. We are very much involved in development. We mobilize people for development. We are involved in building schools, in getting health centers and so forth. In roads, I have to campaign. We are very much involved. We are probably more engaged in development than even the district assembly people, who are very transient and are very preoccupied with some of their own interests. So I do not see the rationale for saying that chiefs should be excluded from the governance at the local level, when we are in fact involved. And the government, when the government goes to various, ministers go to various houses of chiefs, they are always pleading for chiefs' involvement, our assistance in stopping galamsey, in stopping, improper felling of trees, and so on and so on. Why come to us for that and say that you cannot participate in the governance of your own area, particularly if chiefs are the custodians of the land. If they are the landholders, they must reasonably be involved in the administration of the land.
And I'm happy you talked about lands, because land disputes is also another area that we've had to deal with, especially with chiefs. Usually the lands are the bone of contention, and the chiefs either are part of the dispute or have had to come in to settle the dispute. Have you had your own share already?
Yes, we have. We have disputes with our neighboring, one of our neighboring towns. Boundaries. This belongs to us. This belongs. We try to do it through Asante Man Council, through Pacific, through mediation or arbitration. Some time ago, there used to be a land tribunal or boundaries land a commissioner. I don't know where it is now, but I think the whole question of boundaries should be settled in some formal way in order to avoid all these disputes and so on. That's a very troublesome issue. We need not sap our energies. We should spend our energies on more important things than saying that this belongs to us and that this belongs to them.
But many will say, but this is my land. If he's taking it away from me, I have to fight.
I'm thinking of dispute between stools.
Okay.
Yes.
But there are sometimes with individuals.
Land dispute between citizens. We are very much involved in settling that. We as chiefs settle that. So that's one of our functions. If you go to traditional council, we'll write it. In fact, this very morning I was reading the transcript of a proceeding of one of our committees to see whether the right decision is being taken as to a claim. Somebody is claiming land which actually belongs to the family, just because he's been paying the bills, but the land was acquired by a member of the family and given to them as a family property. And the idea of converting this family property into individual ownership is an issue which we can do. So it's just like any other dispute. But I'm thinking of dispute between stools, which revolve around boundaries. These boundaries were supposed to have been settled in Ashanti by a certain commissioner of Ashanti, whose name escapes me right now. But it's not completely conclusive. And so there has to be a way of settling boundaries between between towns. As for the disputes between individuals, we can do that. And the courts also, of course, do that.
Well, Nana, as a chief, I can imagine how daunting the task of being a chief would be like. But of course, at some point, you need to take a rest. What do you do to keep fit?
Well, I play golf.
Okay.
I haven't done so because of COVID
for some time now.
I play golf about twice a week.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
At the Air Force Golf Club.
Okay.
I don't play many holes, maybe 3 to 4. I call it my constitutional number. And people laugh at me, but they say, you do well, even to walk around. That's right, yeah.
But they say golf is a game for lazy people. Is it
not
true?
Not at all. You walk. Oh, it's not lazy. You walk quite a lot. Yes. You work on swing. Yes. It's not for energetic. It's not very energetic, but at least you do quite a good exercise. Yeah.
What do you do when you are in your quiet moments? I mean, to relax.
Well, I like music. You know, I like all kinds of music. And you know,
what genre of music do you listen to?
I like our own music, our own highlight music, gospel, classical, yeah, things like that.
Is this one of your favorites?
Yeah, 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 the ma wo so. Ah, yeah, ah, yeah, yeah, why, yeah, the ma wo so.
Ah, yeah,
I think it's not.
Thank you so much, Nana, for allowing us into your life.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed
Thank
this
you very
conversation.
much, yeah. Yes.
Wish you well, Nana.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, viewers, for watching. Same time next week, we'll be bringing you another interesting personality on PM Personality Profile. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. No, my name is Nana Hema Aisha Ibrahim. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of our program.
Yes. When I went to Achimota,
That's you on the right. Okay. You are very tiny.
Yes, that's very tiny indeed. This is my wife when I met her in England.
Wow.
So then she lived in the April. Right here.
Beautiful.
And when the Queen and the Secretary came in 1961, there's a picture we took when I was a lecturer there. Right there. This is our wedding picture. You can see April 15, 1961. You didn't say that. This is our anniversary.
Which anniversary?
Yes. 60th anniversary.
Today?
Today. Like that.
Oh my goodness.
April 15, 1961. I thought I
I
told you.
have to wish you a happy anniversary.
It's when I graduated from Northern University, 1956. Me there.
Wow, very handsome boy.
Thank you. It's when we met President Mandela, Asante, I know close report myself. We went and presented the citation. This is Nana Kufuor's first outing as Attorney General, attending a workshop of the Ghana Arbitration Center. This is when I was launching my S.K.B Foundation in the area for education and health. This is one of the Ghana's law faculty was giving me an award as the chief moved at that time, Attorney General. This is an award given to me by PRC of the first chairman. An award given to me by the National Peace Council. An award given to me by Achimota School. The president visited me in my palace. And this is the president being shown the picture, that picture of his father.
Oh, he was looking with keen interest.
This is my daughter, who used to work with the president as an advisor of gender.
So, which of your children took over your law profession? I know
The second,
there's no
the
lawyer.
bachelor, there's a lawyer who went to Harvard also.
I mean, there's no lawyer whose child won't be a lawyer. So I was definitely the one that is a lawyer.
Okay. Yes, so, yes.
And this is you in your
Oh,
full
yes. So, that's it.
beautiful. Oh,
All right.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Let me take this opportunity to wish you a happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
May God bless